Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Motormania Podcast for today, the 23rd of October, live on YouTube. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Charlie Tolhurst. Yes, welcome to the Motormania Podcast. This is a YouTube series that I do on my YouTube channel, which is called Chazza Squash. You can go and click the link and subscribe, like and subscribe the channel, and we'll alert you when new videos are uploaded. And of course, I also run the Tonight Show podcast, which you can check out. That airs every week, usually on a Thursday or Friday on corresponding days. And that's more of a chat show based podcast. But yes, welcome to the Motormania Podcast. This is the motoring themed, car themed podcast. Of course, you know me, I'm a huge petrol head. So I thought I would create a podcast all around cars. And we've been going strong, lots of people. If you've enjoyed watching the podcast, yes, it's a great show. Lots to talk about in this. Obviously, motorsport, Formula One is going to be mentioned as well, British touring cars, and yes, as well. You can also go and visit, if you click in the link as well to my channel, you can also go and watch one of the latest videos that's just dropped. That is on the mini challenge. I go into more detail of an overview of the series and talk about the car specifications for all of the cars that have been used. Obviously, it is a mini. The Mini Cooper S, and also the R53 versions. Also the Motorsport series as well, the drivers, the championship format. That is all covered in that video, and you can watch that information video by clicking on the channel and the top link in the top right-hand corner description. Now it's time to talk about the latest car news. And obviously, it's been a little while since I've done one of these podcasts, but I'm going to try and talk about some of the latest car news. First of all, though, we're going to talk about the Formula One United States Grand Prix. And yes, lots of news from that event. In the F1, I know a lot of you guys watched the US Grand Prix last week in Austin. And it was interesting to say the least with the results from the last round at the Circuit of the Americas, also known as COTA for short. And yes, it was a Ferrari 1-2. It was a huge win for Charles Leclerc. What a drive by Ferrari to get both of their cars at the front. Leclerc made the most of a messy first lap between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, and the McLaren and the Red Bull going wide at turn one. Obviously, Red Bull driver kind of, I don't say forcing the McLaren driver off the track there, but Norris and Verstappen got close. They also got close, I think, on lap towards the end of the race. I think it was lap 52 or lap 53. They ran close. Norris overtook off the track. The stewards gave him a 5-second penalty. Penalty, some people sound a bit harsh. Comment down below, guys, what you make to Lando Norris and Max Verstappen melee in the last few laps of that race. What happened was that Charles Leclerc took the win. What a drive by him, just absolutely measured, composed, measured, won by 8.5 seconds from Carlos Sainz, who is off to Williams for next season, finishing in second. Max Verstappen finishing third. That was despite starting the sprint race on pole. And Lando Norris actually started that race on pole and finished fourth. Oscar Piastri was fifth, despite catching Norris towards the end of the race, because him and Verstappen were dueling for so much of it. McLaren having a pretty average week. I say average weekend, but could have expected more points from that. Oscar Piastri was fifth. George Russell was sixth. That was after starting from the pit lane. A good recovery drive from him. Obviously, had that big crash in qualifying and had to change multiple components. Same couldn't be said with his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who had a very torrid weekend. Crashed out on the second lap of the race. Car broke down. He lost control of the car. Car had an issue. And then in qualifying, he didn't even get into Q2. So disastrous weekend for the Brit, the 7-time world champion. Sergio Perez finishing in 7th place. A very disappointing race for Perez again. Better than some races he's had before, but for next season, he is really not challenging at the front. And I think Perez is going to have to be answered questions about his seat. Nico Hülkenberg finished in 8th. A good result for him, actually. Some much-needed points for Haas. Definitely a good result for them. Liam Lawson, though, shout out to him from the back of the grid to P9. What a drive from him after about a year out in F1. Done a great battle with Fernando Alonso. I heard Alonso wasn't particularly happy, but I thought the battle was really entertaining, Definitely one of the most entertaining battles of the weekend. Both drivers had a really good race. And Franco Colapinto finishing 10th, getting the final point. What a drive he had. Alex Albon really struggled in that race. Him and Ocon had a collision on the first lap down at turn 1. And yes, in the end, Colapinto making the most. Why has he not got a seat for next season? This guy, the Argentinian driver, is really showing some very positive steps forward for Williams. The fact that Logan Sargent was not very competitive at all in that second car. Colapinto has done brilliantly. That was a great result for him in the race. I know his qualifying wasn't the best, but that race from him, doing really well on the hard tyres, got himself up there, definitely. And also as well, Magnussen, Gasly. Gasly had upgrades, didn't really work to his full potential with the strategy in 12th. Alonso had a torrid race, 13th. Aston Martin, 13th and 15th. Just the car not looking great. As well. Alonso, Tsunoda 14th. Stroll was 15th. Albon 16th. Bottas 17th. Ocon 18th. That was after that crash at the first lap. And even though he did make a double overtake, he just couldn't get there. And Zhou Guanyu was, obviously Lewis Hamilton was out, not classified, but Zhou Guanyu 19th and probably will not be in F1 next year. I'm very surprised that Zhou is still in the sport. He spun off at turn 1, just had a torrid weekend. Again, that kick Sauber, is dreadful. The kick Saubers, what the hell is wrong with their car this season? It's dreadful. It's so bad on performance. Bottas shouldn't be in a car that bad. And it's terrible. But yeah, Max Verstappen is extending his championship lead. I think Charles Leclerc's only like 22 points behind. We go into the next race, which is in Mexico this weekend. It's on the 25th to 27th of October. So Mexico this weekend. This is going to be it's a high altitude track. It's going to test the engines. This circuit isn't an easy one. Going to test the engines out massively. This is a high altitude track. We've seen lots of breakdowns before at Mexico. So it's certainly going to be interesting, to say the least, on this one. But these were some of the moments that really made the weekend important, including a clip from Norris and Verstappen's battle at the United States Grand Prix the other day, which was certainly something to really be interested about. Have a listen to this. The video will be playing for you very shortly, guys, and we'll address with you exactly what we're on about. This was the Titanic battle for the final podium spot between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Have a listen to this.
Get ahead on the braking zone. Was he forced off the road? Max Verstappen on the defensive. Lando Norris on the attack. Lando Norris going through on the brakes on can. Verstappen hang on to it. He keeps his foot in. They both go off the road. Norris moves ahead for the first time since lap number 1, but he did so with all 4 wheels off the road. Outside the track. Did Lando Norris get ahead on the braking zone? Was he forced off the road? Max Verstappen on the defense.
Right, that was the main debate. What was that? Was it Lando's fault or Max's fault? Comment down below what you make. There was also one on the first lap as well, which certainly was interesting. So yes, F1's back in Mexico this weekend for the next race. Also as well, I'm going to quickly go over the Cup Series as well, NASCAR Cup, whilst we're here, because we've had some confirmation about the final lot of drivers who are qualified. Yes, according to this, Joey Logano is one of the first confirmed drivers to qualify for the Final Four. Yes, he won the South Point 400 at Las Vegas the other day to take one of the final playoff spots for the Final Four, the Championship Four as it's called. Logano finished ahead of Christopher Bell, Daniel Suarez, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Martin Truex Jr., Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, Joe Hunter, Newman Chet, and Chris Buescher rounding out the top 10. Despite a few DNFs from Dillon, Cindric, Chase Elliott was also involved as well, probably ending their playoff hopes in a nutshell. But yes, according to the standings now, with the win, it puts certainly Joey Logano in contention. In terms of who's leading on points, well, it's going to be interesting. But having said that, Christopher Bell is still up there as well on his championships, that overall standings leader. So in terms of that, that's the regular championship. Playoff-wise, in terms of this, Christopher Bell is currently second. Carl Larson is third and William Byron is fourth. On the bubble at the moment, Chase Elliott had a terrible weekend. He's 53 points off the playoffs. 47 back is Blaney. Reddick is sixth on 30. And Denny Hamlin is 27 off as well. So it's certainly interesting to say that the next race for the Cup Series is going to be at Miami, Homestead Miami Speedway on the 27th of October. And then we have three more races of the season left, Martinsville and then Phoenix on the 11th of November. That will be the season finale race. I think it's the season finale 500, I think it's called. So, yes, Homestead Miami comes the next race. In terms of what the NASCAR Homestead Miami race is going to be called, we can confirm you now that the Homestead race is going to be the most important race of the season. So we can confirm to you the race name for the Homestead Miami track is the Straight Talk Wireless 400. That is the race. Straight Talk Wireless 400. It used to be called Dixie Vodka 400. So that's the race I remember it from. But that is the Cup Series there. That's going to that in a couple of weeks' time, or this weekend. In terms of other races, other news now, let's crack on with the car news today. We've got loads of car news to talk about. New car news. You can also, as well, check out my Substack. I recently wrote a Substack about the mini challenge as well. So it's certainly interesting. Now, in terms of car news now, let's talk about this. There's a lot of news. Obviously, we had the Paris Motor Show the other week, so all the new cars, the Mini JCW Electric was there, along with several other cars as well. In terms of car news, we're going to be talking about this. This is the Morgan Plus 6. It's a very iconic car. It's been around for a long time. Morgan are known for creating contemporary-looking cars. You know, they're very well known for creating contemporary-looking, almost like classic cars, but they have like modern engines and stuff. Well, it turns out that the Plus 6 is a very iconic car by Morgan. The styling is actually started with the 4x4 Plus 4 in 1936, but a Plus 6 is going to be replaced by an all-new sports coupe car later this year. It's going to be bowing out with a £97,000 special edition. It's going to cost just under 97 grand. It's going to be called the Plus 6 Pinnacle, which will be limited to just 30 examples or design cues from a striking Pininfarina styled Midsummer that was unveiled earlier this year. It's going to be a two-seater sports car that will not be traditional wing silhouette of today's four-wheel Morgans. In terms of that, the best-selling four-cylinder Plus 4, which has recently been selling outselling the Plus 6, will be left to continue with the brand's traditional vintage styling as well. In terms of this, the Plus 6 will use a BMW-derived 3-litre straight 6, which makes 330 brake horsepower, although it's likely reliably capable of considerably higher outputs. In terms of this, 0 to 62 miles an hour is 4.2 seconds, and the top speed is 160 miles an hour. Extra power, perhaps as much as 380 brake horsepower, could lift it towards supercar levels. It comes as Matthew Hoyle is appointed Morgan's new managing director. So yes, certainly Morgan probably heading to a more different area. Obviously, they're known for their classic design cues with the likes of the Aeromax and stuff like that, using BMW engines a lot. But yeah, no more Plus 6 will be going that very soon. Also as well, Volvo considering XC sales ramp up outside of EU tariffs hit, they're looking as well at shifting production as well. And also as well, in new terms of new cars, Jaguar are going to be building a brand new E-Type 50 years after GT retirement. The seminal Grand Taurus reborn from scratch will be with a choice of modern features and 18-karat gold badges. So it's going to be a very limited production run to celebrate 50 years since the retirement. Obviously, this year, not just this year, but next year marks 50 years ago since the end of the E-Type. Obviously, the V12 was the final generation of the Series 3. The firm's historic vehicle, Jaguar Classic, has used the original blueprints for 2 E-Types from the ground up for a client in Southeast Asia, revealing them half a century after the final examples of the car rolled out off the line in Coventry. It's designed to the original Series 1 E-Type specification, but with a run-out Series 3 commemorative edition. They are only new E-Types to ever leave Jaguar Classic workshop. Both are the drop head coupes, one is finished in Signet green, the other is finished in opal black. Both variations colour schemes were on the options list in 1974. They draw power from a 3.8 litre straight 6, which was powered the E-Type powertrain from 1961-1964. They're now equipped with electronic fuel injection in place of the triple SU carbs in the original, a 5-speed manual rather than the 4-speed manual. Jaguar was not given a power figure, but no doubt it's looking up on the 265 from the Series 1. So yeah, I have to say, I'm glad that they're bringing out these special limited edition E-Types. I think one of them's a coupe and one's a convertible. I mean, look, the E-Type Series 1, Enzo Ferrari called the most beautiful car ever made. I love an E-Type. This is what they're going to look like. I love a Series 1 E-Type. I know the seats were not the most comfortable, but this looks like it's going to get some much needed renovation. Newer engines as well. Fuel injection as well. For the first time ever on an E-Type. Instead of carburetors. So it should be a lot more reliable, but it retains that classic E-Type charm. I can't wait to see these cars 50 years later with basically ground up as well. So this is going to be really interesting. I can't wait for this. As well. So there's not really much else car news to talk about. So I'm going to finish off the show by talking about some news from McLaren and Ferrari recently. This has been by far the biggest news of the last week. McLaren and Ferrari unveiling 2 new hypercars to the public. And these look like they're going to be the replacements for the P1 and the LaFerrari. If you don't know them two, they were part of the hypercar Holy Trinity with the likes of the Porsche 918, the McLaren P1, and the Ferrari LaFerrari. Obviously, used to be raced on Top Gear with Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May. Jeremy had the McLaren. Richard had the Porsche 918. And, of course, James May had the LaFerrari. But McLaren and Ferrari have announced new versions. Now, whether they're the successors, we don't know. McLaren have announced the W1. And I think Ferrari have announced, I think it's the SF80, I think it's called. So this is the W1 McLaren, which is going to be unveiled. People might say, oh, it looks like the Senna. But the McLaren W1 is going to be, well, let's be honest with you. When you look at the design cues for this car, it reminds you so much of the it's really interesting. But I have to say, these two cars have just got so much iconicness about them. It's going to use an advanced suspension setup. So it's a really unique car. Both of these two cars are unique. So we're going to dive through both of them now and talk to you about the figures, what's behind these cars. Let's start off with the McLaren W1 whilst we're here. This was unveiled the other day. I actually saw this car. I was on social media, went on Instagram, and I saw this car actually. McLaren unveil this. Looks really cool, doesn't it, the W1? McLaren claim it's the real supercar. This is on their website, by the way. I obviously support the F1 team, so you know, unfortunately, we are having issues. Oh, God. Bear with me, guys. Unfortunately, there is some technical issues loading up McLaren's website. Yes. This is launched. McLaren launched it on the 50th anniversary of their first Formula One championship win. The W1 has embodied the World Championship mindset to strive to achieve more, always pushing the boundaries of performance. That's the car there. Look at that. That so reminds me of the P1, that does. It really, really does. The way it looks. In terms of it as well, it's also going to feature a new MHP engine. It's the brand new lighter E module. It's F1 derived technology. It's going to have an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. So it's going to be very, very similar to the F1 car. The result is if it's the fastest accelerating road legal McLaren ever, launching from 0 to 200 kilometers an hour. I think that's 124 miles an hour in 5.8 seconds. Blisteringly fast. In terms of that, it's going to feature probably an electric motor. Wouldn't be surprised. I think this car is basically going to be embodied by our F1 and the P1. As you can see there, that's the F1 there as well. Also uses a special aerodynamic system. Also claims it's going to be an active long tail wing for race mode, which will extend 330 millimeters as well. Also has F1's race modes and suspension as well, according to this. It's also going to have Duracell style engines as well. Also a really cool, really quite like camouflaged interior as well. Adjustable drivers. That is the F1 for you. In terms of the power, let's talk about this engine. This engine looks really cool in the W1. So in terms of this, what engine is the McLaren W1 using? Well, it's a V8. And yeah, the McLaren W1 is going to have a very powerful engine. So in terms of the engine, the McLaren W1 is going to feature a 4-litre twin-turbo flat-plane crank V8. It's going to have 1,275 brake horsepower. Obviously, that's with electric motors. It's 93 brake horsepower more than the previous most powerful engine. I think that's the P1. It is technically the P1 successor as well. 0 to 60 miles an hour. Well, probably about 2.6 seconds, according to this. What's the actual claim? 2.7. It'll be limited to electronic limit to 217, 0 to 186 in 12.7 seconds. Man, this is going to be blisteringly fast. So that's the W1 for you there. The McLaren W1 is pictured there. Then we have, finally, the Ferrari F80. Not the F40, the F80 Ferrari, the final car before we round up the show today. This car looks to be amazing. The F80 is Ferrari's, most likely Ferrari's LaFerrari successor. This is the F80 here. Oh my God, this thing looks amazing. Trust me. The F80, there's the engine there for you. The cogs in the cylinders. That's the car being put together. That's the rear end of it. And that's the car in front. Oh, look at that Ferrari. Certainly has that futuristic vibe, doesn't it? As well, Ferrari F80. It's going to have an MG UK electric motor. Again, developed with Formula One technology from Maranello as well with this car. In terms of performance, this car, I think that the other one was about £1 million. In terms of the engine, this is what's going to be very interesting because this car I don't think this car's using a V12. Nope. This car is going to have a V6. Would you believe it? It's going to use a 3-litre twin turbocharged V6 powertrain. It is not the same engine in the McLaren. So McLaren's using a V8. It's going to ditch a V12 for a V6. Instead, though, it is twin turbocharged. It's going to use a hybrid V6 instead. It's going to produce 1,200 brake horsepower. It does 0 to 60 in 2.15 seconds. Le Mans inspired interior layout. And it's going to be called just 799 examples will be built. In terms of that, it's going to cost £3 million each. Wow. £3 million. I mean, that is a job. That's so expensive. But what you see here, guys, a V6 instead of V12. This is what's going to be interesting about the F80 is how this car is effectively going to use a V6. And I wonder when you drive it, whether you'll notice the difference. Because Ford, when they done the GT, the newer version, they removed the V8 and replaced it with a V6, but it was twin turbocharged. So I'm very interested to see. This is going to be a lot more of an F1 inspired car than the W1 because it's going to use a V6, which are hybrids. And they're the same engines in the F1. So certainly going to be very interesting to see how they get on. So I'm wondering how they're going to get on in general. So I'm really hoping that these cars actually do offer some decent level of performance. So that is all I'm going to say to there. And that is the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much for watching. And yes, that is the end of the Motormaina Podcast. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Charlie Tolhurst. Take care and goodbye.